I'm not here to black pill you on technology, but I do think all of us need to realize that any technological project, even that has the purest motivations, be that GNU Linux, be that Bitcoin, they are, just as a fact of life, going to be taken over by, let's say, apathetic interests. You know, there is a core, I mean, let's take Bitcoin as an example. There is a cypherpunk core of the OG Bitcoin guys who had a goal to create a financial system outside of the government. The peer-to-peer cash, peer-to-peer exchange of value, private, you know, secure, all these kind of things. But you look at Bitcoin as it exists today, which apparently, I don't know, it hit 100K a little bit ago and then went down and up and blah, blah, blah. But either way, I am very pessimistic about the state of Bitcoin. This isn't just about Bitcoin, but you know, the fact is we see these projects that have these pure goals, and they're taken over by people who like some of the benefits of those goals. They like, I don't know, like, or in Linux, right? People like having a hackable operating system. They like having free software, but they don't really take it to its logical conclusion. They're happy kind of you know, there's that expression, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I agree with that, but at the same time, you don't want good to be the enemy of perfect. You don't want to get to a place and say, oh, I'm using Linux, therefore I don't want to go any further. I don't want to have a free BIOS. I don't want to encrypt all my hard drives. That's hard. It isn't hard. I don't want to, I don't know, people, the Free Software Foundation, they're a little too stringent. They're a little too, you know, they just set unrealistic goals. And the fact is, unrealistic goals are the things that have made us more free. They're the thing, like the people who are out there advocating vociferously, ideologically, who are going, you know, who are really transgressing, you know, what we think is possible. You know, the proverbial Overton window, of course. It's because of people who are thinking further that we can even be where we are. If there weren't, you know, the GNU project, the Free Software Foundation, it's not just, oh, we wouldn't have 100% free operating systems. We wouldn't have adulterated halfway free software system. You wouldn't have anything like Linux. Every single one of us, if we were normies, we would have to be using Windows or Mac. You couldn't spin up a server running free. You couldn't do that at all. Bitcoin is the same way. You know, like the unfortunate fact, though, as I was saying at the beginning of this video, is as you have more and more people that are herding into projects because they have benefits. At the same time, the discernment of the people in those projects just naturally, you know, they naturally disintegrate. The average standard, the ideological standard decreases. You reach the lowest common denominator. And the fact is, you know, in both cases, actually, I mean, now Linux I think is less bad, but I mean, you look at Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, I don't want to limit it just to Bitcoin, but, you know, the number of people who actually seriously care about creating a fully independent financial system or, I don't know, you know, just anything in that domain are so few. They're really a nearly extinct species. And if that species go extinct, we're screwed. Like, I mean, we have to totally reinvent the wheel intellectually, ideologically. You know, we just had so much, and now everything has become a fad. You know, you have got, you know, I don't like mentioning people by name, but he, you know, the guy, Michael Saylor, who has now become the face of Bitcoin. And it's all about line go up, it's all about having a commodity, and it's all about making the technology big. You want to get everyone in it, you want to get governments in it, you want to get the already existing financial system in it. You don't want it to be something that actually liberates people. Oh, well, you'll say a bunch of words about that, but you don't mean it. You don't want it to be something dangerous, a little more, I don't know, that causes a threat of like realistic change. You know, the funny thing is people, I guess the thing that makes me sad is so often you see people who have these, who kind of know, for example, that, oh, free software is a good thing. Or, oh, privacy and security and cryptocurrency, you know, having, you know, something like Monero or, you know, a more private crypto setup, you know, let's say, these are good things, but I'm not going to push them. I'm not going to push them on people. I'm not going to say, you know, it's almost like it's. I guess it annoys me because the people who believe good things, they don't want to force them down people's throats. Or it's not even about forcing them down throats. It's really about they don't even want to kind of advocate for their own case. But the bad guys out there, the bad guys who water down these projects, they don't feel any qualms about that. You know, they want to totally redefine Bitcoin. It's no longer a peer-to-peer, financial transaction. It's not digital cash anymore. It's just something you hold and you watch the number go up, you know? And ultimately, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's not so, it definitely, Bitcoin was certainly never created to be a way of making money in the first place. That's just an accident of history and digital scarcity, okay? That has nothing to do with what it's about, okay? The fact is now, you know, how old is it? I don't know, like 10, 15 years? What year are we even in? I don't know. But, you know, we've had this technology for so long, and in terms of the difference it makes in individual lives, it's been really negligible. I mean, it still is like a nearly entirely speculative project. And even to get people in it nowadays, you know, in a lot of the Bitcoin OGs, they almost like, they don't realize how bad it is, right? But when you're trying to get someone into like Bitcoin or Monero nowadays, it's almost impossible to do it without just telling them to sign up for some know your customer exchange where you take a picture of your ID and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, that's the shame of it. I mean, either way, I'm kind of rambling here, but I want people to realize this isn't necessarily a cause for blackpilling, because there's a sense in which it's inevitable, okay? Because when a new technology comes, and I don't mean inevitable like, oh, it's over. That's not what I'm saying either, okay? I want to clarify what I mean. I mean, when you have a new technology, it often, not always, but often spreads like wildfire, okay? And that wildfire goes everywhere. And it goes to people who are undiscerning. It goes to people who don't understand it. It goes to people who don't get the point, especially if that technology makes you money. Especially if that technology, like Linux nowadays, you know, people getting into Linux, they're not necessarily even motivated about free software or even open source. Sometimes they just like it because it's cool and Windows runs slow, okay? But it's going to spread everywhere, and it's just fundamental that however big it spreads, you have to have that kind of cadre, let's say, of people who actually care, you know, of people who care what it was originally made for, and in fact are looking for ways to push that envelope to make it better than what people ever expected, you know. And so that I think is, you know, kind of the shame, because, you know, these people are few. You know, I was watching some Linux videos within the past year, you know, while I was off YouTube, you know, when I wasn't like doing YouTube videos, but I stumbled across these Linux videos of a couple guys just like maligning the free software movement, or maligning, you know, guys who used Linux as their main thing all the time. Okay, I'm not going to mention names, but they used Linux. They had Linux YouTube channels, and then they're maligning people like the Free Software Foundation or the GNU Project, who literally, they are the hand that feeds, you know. I'm not saying obviously they didn't write all free software there is, but they're the intellectual core that all of us have to thank. And, you know, people who get into Linux and who are just constantly whining about, people, you don't want it to be too ideologically pure. You don't want to be too much of a purity spiral. And no, that's not, yes, we actually do. We actually do want that. That's not me saying that anyone who goes halfway there or 99% of the way there is like no better than nothing. But we have to remember that this is a constant, like, technology is spreading like wildfire. And the issue is, what is going to endanger us is not necessarily just, some corporations writing software to spy on us. Really, it's when people use technology in an undiscerning way, because fads take off. You know, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's AI, whether it's, you know, whatever other fads that are going around, which mostly people come to them because they are not discerning. They don't really get the point of it. But we just need that core remaining. And I guess what I see, I don't know if it's FUD, I don't know if it's just like intellectual laziness, but there are too many guys out there on the internet who like almost miss the point of why they're doing this whole thing. You know, why care about free software? Why care about privacy? Why care about all these things? It's not because you want to hide your internet searches. Okay, that's not it. It's because, you know, I think I said in a video years ago, like, I don't care that much about my personal privacy. I do. I mean, in the abstract, you know, it's nice to have some privacy. But what matters way more to me is having systemic privacy. Living in a world where, you know, you're not going to have a corporation or government that has wide metadata access to everyone, that can socially engineer us, that can kind of, I don't know, oppress us, to use a goofy word, but a no less true word, of course. And that's what I'm worried about, right? So, and I don't know. I don't know if I have another point with this, but I guess I'm just expressing my disappointment. And I want guys, again, you need to be aiming for purity, okay? Whether you're a developer or whether you're like me, I'm just a normal user. I'm just a normal Linux power user, okay? I don't know anything about this fancy stuff, but I want to be constantly there advocating for the goal, right? I'm not going to be happy being halfway there. I'm not going to be happy with, oh, I'm just going to tell my friends to use Bitcoin, even though, like, you know, all transactions are public and it takes like $50 to send something, you know, it's like, or I'm not going to be happy. You know, it's nice that we have Linux as an operating system, but I want 100% free and open source hardware. Like, I want open schematics for everything. I want everything. I don't want to have to worry about, you know, the firmware on the motherboard or your processor or anything, any of this kind of, I don't know, Intel management engine. I don't want to live in a world where we have that, right? And we might not be able to live right now, today in 2025, in a world without that. But you just, at the bare minimum, if you are like me, you're just a normal dude. You're not even like a developer or programmer or anything like that. You have to advocate. You have to demand perfection. Okay? I don't expect to ever get to 100%, but 99.999999, I want to get there. I think that's a realistic goal. Okay?